Most business owners don't stay stuck because they're lazy. They stay stuck because they keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And nobody around them is willing to tell them the truth. Now, a lot of business owners are making money while slowly building a life they don't even enjoy living. Today, I want to break down the 3 biggest mistakes I see business owners making that quietly keep them stuck in business, leadership, health, relationships, and life. And honestly, I've made every single one of these myself. Mistake number 1, isolation. Business owners carry pressure silently, behind the scenes that nobody understands. Their spouse, their family, their kids, their employees. And I've been there myself. Growing the insurance agency that I opened up in 2015 with 0 customers, 0 employees, just myself, time, energy, and effort. I was trying to lead, I was trying to perform, and I was trying to carry everything on my shoulders while also acting like everything was fine on the outside surface level. And one of the things that I have learned being a student of the game is money does not fix isolation. The wrong room keeps you stuck. There is so many rooms around us. There's our office, there's our bedrooms, there's our networking rooms, there's mastermind groups. There is all these rooms around us, and the wrong room keeps you stuck. Surface level conversations keep you stuck. Pride keeps you stuck. Ego keeps you stuck. And of course, just shy of 6 years ago, I did not understand this. I did not receive this really well. I was just grinding and hustling every single day. And honestly, isolation made it feel real safe. You know what I mean listening to this. Sitting in your office by yourself, no phones ringing, nobody to distract you, just you and isolation. Now, early years of building the insurance company, I would go into the office and I would isolate myself because I had to meet my numbers. I had to market. I had to manage my employees. I had to lead my employees. And the first 3 years, I had ended up getting migraines early in the morning when I was showing up to the office at 6:30 in the morning, checking my emails. And I found myself over and over and over again that it was slowly destroying my growth. And I just was not able to sustain that. Early in my career, when I first got out of college, I was fired twice. For a lot of y'all that know that have followed my journey before ever becoming an entrepreneur or business owner, I was fired 2 times. And I had isolated myself when getting fired. And the only person I was able to talk to about this was my wife. And reflecting back by getting fired and building my first business, which was the insurance company from ground up, I not only was feeling the pressure while also trying to lead at a high level my household and these businesses. I realized that the pressure was just constantly stacking on top of my shoulders, and it was causing frustration. It was causing overwhelm. And I realized that I had been isolating myself, not intentionally, just because that's all I knew. And being a leader and a business owner, and I'm sure you can relate with this as a man and woman that has chosen to lead that type of life, a lot of times it's human nature to go and isolate ourselves. And fast forward through all these years of starting Level Up and Live with business owners, I needed the real conversations. I needed the accountability. And once I plugged myself and forged myself into that environment, that's when everything changed. And I'm a big believer in that everything happens for a reason. I believe that God had to take me through getting fired in my first 2 jobs, take me through the entrepreneur journey, because I thought the pride and the ego and the surface level and the isolation, I thought I had it figured out. But God knew He was smiling on His child this entire time and realized He was taking me through this pain cave, because ultimately what I have learned is that you have to go through these pain caves to go, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired. I need help. And that was me. And then once I understood that, once I was self-aware of that, that's when everything changed. Coming out of isolation. So when I say isolation is expensive, that's what I mean. Trying to do everything on your own. Mistake number 2, no structure or intentionality. And I'm sure you can resonate with this, especially the first 5 years in business. I was waking up every single morning, checking my emails, checking social media, who liked, who commented, who direct messaged me, who sent me an email, what the customer that I talked to 2 days ago, were they going to do business with me? All these things, I was just reacting to the world. And most business owners, I'm sure you can resonate with this, wake up to being reactive. And that's just business. We're not even talking about all these other areas of life. We're constantly firefighting, reacting, stressed, overwhelmed, and wondering why we feel stuck. And one of the things that I have learned that I wanted to share with you is busyness does not equal productivity. I didn't understand this my first 5 years. I felt like I was like, I'm so busy. I'd get up in the morning, I would do 25 different things. And then by the end of the day, and going, yes, I was productive? No, I was busy, being busy, and just the rat in the rat race. And what changed was I was intentional. I started structuring my day. Instead of reacting, I was leading how I was showing up in my day. I started weekly planning on Sundays. It's called the weekly design system. You look out 7 days in advance and you work backwards. You start looking at the moment you get up in the morning to the moment you go to bed. What does that next day look like? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? For me, it was I wanted to stay in my lane. I wanted to do 2 or 3 different things that I was really good at, which is developing leaders, which is holding individuals and challenging individuals around me, holding them accountable. I wanted to make a difference. So I had to start structuring my day around what really lit me up. So for me, it was just one foot in front of the other, making tweaks and adjustments every single week. I started having more leadership meetings and more intentional conversations. I started time blocking my leadership meetings versus pop-up leadership meetings. And the accountability to that on a weekly rhythm, that is how you move the needle. I also protected time for my health, for my marriage, for my spirituality and my faith and my vision. Because what I had found the first 5 years of building a business is all that was non-existent. Health, yes, I was exercising, but I wasn't seeing any results. I was grinding away, but I was eating horrible food. I would eat pizzas, burgers, cookies, and wondering why I wasn't losing any weight. You ever go to the gym and you walk in there and you say hi, you see the same guy, same girl every single week, and their body composition hasn't changed in 4 years? That was me. I was that guy that was grinding it out. I would go burn 700 to 1,000 calories in a 60-minute workout, and then 2 hours later go eat Chick-fil-A, eat a pizza, eat a burger, and wondering why I was always fatigued. And it wasn't until I started protecting and time blocking and structuring and being very intentional about my health, that's when things started to change. Same thing with my marriage. I picked my head up after a month and I realized, oh my gosh, me and my wife haven't taken a date. Oh my gosh, me and my wife haven't went to church. And I started being intentional and structuring my days around these big rocks, these big priorities that really fill my tank. And spirituality. What good is it that if we're doing as men and women, as leaders of this community, and we don't have our faith and groundedness in that spiritual connection with our Creator, then you're just reacting to the day. So when you're intentional about that and you align it with your vision of where you're going in your life for your business and your personal life, that's when everything changes. So mistake number 2 is you want to be intentional and structure your day. And I'll leave you with this and we'll move to number 3. If you don't control your calendar and environment that you're in, somebody else will. If you look at your calendar right now, if you look at your environment right now, you're getting dictated from your employer, from your friends, from your employees, from your kids. Everybody's pulling you in all these different directions. I'm going to leave you with this story. Here recently, building Level Up and Live, we have leaders within our community. And one of our leaders I had a conversation with here recently, and he is scaling his business. He is growing. He's got dozens of employees. He's got a family. He's got uh, health and wellness that he does on the side. So he is constantly just on the go and stretching and becoming that 10.0 version of himself. We have a leadership meeting every single Wednesday, and that is time blocked. There are leaders that time block that are structured and make that intentional because it not only fulfills them, but it also helps us create a better experience for our community. And this individual knows the standards. And it's happened a couple times, and it happened again here recently. We got an email after sending out the agenda saying that he was not going to be there. Something had come up as far as a customer, not an emergency, but as a customer. I ended up jumping on a phone call with this individual and finding out that the customer was dictating his schedule. So us as leaders and entrepreneurs, if we're in survival mode, if we're at max capacity, if we are at the beckon of everybody else's calendar and you're not controlling it, somebody else is. And it's just not sustainable. We have to be able to communicate that to the individuals around us by being intentional and structuring that. Mistake number 3, attaching identity to business success. Too many business owners become their business. Gosh, did I make this mistake? Revenue becomes self-worth and production becomes identity. Now, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I still struggle with this. If numbers are not moving and we're not growing 10, 15, 20, 25% year over year, I tie a sense of self-worth and identity to that. So thankfully, the Lord, Jesus, my Lord and Savior, is working with me through that. And because my self-worth needs to be tied in my creator, my production, my creator needs to be my identity in him. That's what I can control. And a lot of times I can't control if I put my self-worth in my production, in my business, and how I look, how I feel, then those are the uncontrollables. And what happens if you do this? Well, great question. Your health suffers like mine did. I was 30 pounds overweight. Your marriage suffers. My marriage, the emotional intimacy, that was one of the biggest things that I struggled with was emotional intimacy, how to have an emotional connection with my wife. Spiritual disconnectedness. Oh my gosh. Prior to 4 years ago, there was no connection to my creator. There was no spiritual groundedness. And I was just waking up, treading water every single day. And I was mentally exhausted. In your 20s, this may work. But rest assured, you know this because I've worked with so many of 32, 33, 34, 35-year-olds, and even 40 and 50-year-olds are experiencing this later in their life where they're just exhausted. You're mentally tired. So you have to be able to attach that identity outside of the business success. Don't make that mistake like I have. And what I have learned is you can build a business, a successful business, and still hate your life. That was me in 2020. I had built this beautiful business, well-oiled machine. I had always been taught by Grant Cardone, Robert Kiyosaki, all these different guys, your asset needs to be paying for your liabilities. Alex Hormozi, all these different mentors had just gave me the blueprint on how to build a successful business, but I still hated my life and what was going on around me. And you may resonate with that as well. And the goal is to avoid that or mitigate that or hedge that. And that's why I talk so much about being all in versus all consumed. There's a difference there. I was all consumed 24/7, grinding, hustling, just constantly thinking. I could not get it out of my brain. And that's all consumed. You neglect everything around you. And that's just not a life worth living. So there's that fine balance and alignment to who you're called to be. Now, most business owners don't need more information. You've heard these mistakes. You've heard the information from podcasts, books, audiobooks, you name it. We need better people around us. We need individuals that are going to challenge us. We need individuals that are going to be able to speak wisdom into our life. We need individuals that are going to hold us accountable into those higher standards with kindness, humility, and love. Because that accountability is ultimately going to get you to where you want to go in these different areas of life. And the real conversations, I've been to networking groups, and they're good for individuals that are looking to build the relationships. I recommend them to individuals that are just starting their business, just to get their name out there. But let's be honest, we've all been to those. Those are surface level conversations. Where are you having the real conversations? Where are you having these types of conversations? At the coffee shops, on a conversational podcast, on a weekly lunch with somebody else that understands and lives this life and embodies this life, and that's going to probe and ask you good quality questions. Here recently, we did an exercise at our mastermind group, and one of the exercise was along the lines of your business and your life is the quality of question that you ask. And I just recently made an episode on this because I didn't know how to ask good quality questions. Well, what does that actually look like? And you have to get curious beyond just that surface level talk to be able to dive deep and ask good quality questions to really speed up that learning curve on individuals that you're meeting with. And then, of course, structuring this. So many, myself included, one time I would go to a seminar, one time I'd go to a mastermind group, and then, I left feeling good. I would go take an action step, and then life would hit me. There was no real structure. Same thing with early in my marriage. We were all over the place. We were reacting. We were just bouncing off the wall, and it was exhausting. So we started putting structure, me and my wife, every single week. It was we gave ourselves grace and mercy, and told ourselves it was okay that we were both living purpose-driven lives. And that's the season of life that we were in. However, we still had to have structure around our marriage because that was important to us. So we had tried to do dinner in the evening times because you always hear, go on a date night. Well, we tried that. We wanted it so bad. We would go on these date nights and we would get in arguments. It'd be 4:00 in the afternoon. And for those that know us, we would wake up at 3:30, 4:00 every morning. So by 4:00, we'd been up for 12 or 13 hours. Well, by 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, we're exhausted. We're tired from the day. And we would get in these arguments and we reflected and we're like, why is this happening? Well, what we learned is because we had to make a pivot. We had to adjust our structure. We had to be more intentional about how we were showing up. We weren't our best versions of ourselves. We were giving it to everybody else. So instead, we met each other where we are. And now we meet up weekly, every single Sunday, ride together before church, and we have a 60 to 90-minute deep conversation because that's structured. And it's in the morning time. We're able to have our coffee, and we're able to be our 10.0 version of ourselves. And then community. It was so easy for Kendra and I and myself as a business owner and leader to be alone, to build. And I always thought, I would miss things, whether it was things that I get invited to be a part of a community because I needed to grind. I needed to hustle. I needed to solve this problem. I needed to put this fire out. I needed to hire this person. I needed to do this marketing and this content. And here's what I realized is there's always going to be a challenge. There's always going to be a fire to put out. There's always going to be an issue. There's always going to be another sale. There's always going to be another employee to hire. And by surrounding yourself with a community, being intentional and structuring that's when everything changes. It's because you have other individuals that are going to be there with their hands wide open, give you the hug, give you the high five, and meet you where you are. And that is community. We as human beings, we all need community. And that's what actually changes people. That's what actually changed me. And I was able to go through that transformation. And I want the same for you as well. So if this episode resonated with you, please don't ignore it. That pressure, frustration, or feeling of being stuck, that's trying to tell you something internally. That's your gut. That's your intuition. You weren't meant to do life and business alone. You know this. If you're a business owner or a leader here locally in Montgomery County looking for a room full of people who actually want to grow, be challenged, and level up together, reach out to me. Appreciate you guys being here. Keep leveling up.